have the committee to speak on the issues. The committee has been requested that we go ahead and look at the different options that are available through some of the samples that we received in the last meeting, and then put their input. Now, this time, after we hear from the committee, we will leave up to 5 minutes for everyone to speak afterwards. And if everyone can just hold their questions until that time, we'll go ahead and hear from the committee, and then we will let the public respond to those comments. In old business,
If you would close that blind right there, so no can't be just me, but it's blinding.
sure.
Thank you.
This one? Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, so we will begin the discussion of the public comments guidelines. And in the first question is, what recommendations do you have, if any, after reviewing the samples from other counties, in addition to what we currently have established? So if the committee will turn on their microphones, make sure they're on, then we're good. I'll open that up for discussion.
Brad? I read all those for Sumner County and every other county, and I guess all of us have too. What works for one county may not work for this county.
Correct.
And I think on public comments, what we've got going now, just like tonight, you're given 5 minutes. And, the way we normally do that, if you've got public comment, if it's on an agenda item, you've got 3 minutes to speak. And if you need additional time, you go down and get 2 more minutes added to it. I can't see where that's gone wrong.
I'm not saying that it is wrong, so if that's what the wishes of the committee would be, to allow 3, and then if someone wishes to speak longer, we can make a determination as long
Yeah,
as
they
it's not
want to spend
redundant.
And there's times I've seen it in the years past where a guy be right in the middle of the paragraph and we shut him off. I think out of courtesy, you need to let him say, how much longer you gonna need? Do you need 30 more seconds? And get it out of the way if you wanna keep the people happy.
Is it my turn?
Yes.
Okay, so when I read this, I made some notes. So I'm just going to go through these notes, and then that way, if y'all have any questions afterwards, I mean, try to take notes or remember. I don't remember anything. So anyway, Marshall, when we were given, what it is we were given some different information from different counties. So after reading those, there was some I really liked, some I really didn't care for because I didn't think it would really fit our county. Like, I didn't like Marshall counties. I thought it was too restricting. I just really didn't like it. I like the fact that if a commissioner or the chairperson wants someone to speak, it must be voted on. So that way, if you have one person that wants something to speak, if that commissioner says, I really want to hear this information, or I really want to allow him more time, kind of like Wayne was talking about, then you can bring that up for a vote. It's not so haphazard. It's very controlled. I mean, everything is a lot more controlled like that. 30 minutes set aside for the longest for comments. I think since there's 2 comment sections, it seems that you can probably comment before, comment after. And like I said last week, if you really want to know what's going on, you need to go to the committee meetings because that's where all the work's done. Comments should pertain to the agenda items. If you want to discuss other issues, it needs to be placed in writing for the committee meetings. And that was something that somebody else said. I think that way, you've done your part. You've said, I really want this looked at. I have this question. There should be a committee for every question that you all have. I mean, or at least there used to be. So you could place it in there, and that chairperson needs to be the one to make sure that you get your answers, that it's brought up. Whether anybody thinks it's silly or not, it's your question. Ask the question, but put it in the committee meetings so that you can go to the meetings, so you can get your answer. You may not like the answer, but at least you'll get an answer. I think, and this is something that I really have a pet peeve with, and I always have, you come up here and you start, and I don't mean you all, I just mean in general, a person comes up and they really get belligerent about something or something that's totally off topic, I don't think you need to be asked to sit down. You need to be asked to leave. People sitting on this side don't need to be rude to you all, and that you all don't need to be rude to them. And we don't need some random person up here just babbling about something that has absolutely nothing to do with either what's on the agenda, what is it going on in this county. I mean, I cannot stress enough, y'all, if you want to know what's going on, come to the committee meetings. I mean, come to the committee meetings. Then I just made random things that I'll have to go back and look up, because this was like two meetings ago. Like page 6, number 7, I either liked or didn't like. I'd have to go look it up. But anyway, that kind of gets this started. Those are my feelings. One of the questions was also about the 10-day rule. So I'm just going to lay this out there. I completely, fully, and totally support the 10-day rule. I supported it when it went in, and I support it today. That's all I have to say.
Very good.
Thank you. Very good. Anyone else like to add to those comments?
Well, I think her points were very good. What I've looked over this and just my rambling thoughts, when our public is addressing the commission, it's real difficult sometimes because they're talking to us and we're staring back at them. You know, and I know that's kind of unnerving for the speaker because they don't know if they're getting through to us or not, so I don't know what we can do about that. I would ask that our speakers will stay on point, you know, have an idea. And I really like what you said about submitting your question to the committee and getting back to that. I think that each one of the speakers need to speak for themselves. We come up, everybody, this is the way everybody feels. Well, we know that's a grand statement. And some of the things that I really felt, and I've talked to several commissioners about it, we represent several hundred people in each one of our districts. And I know that I'm no different than the rest. We mobilize, talk to our constituents, get feedback, get ideas. I don't know how many times that someone from the public's come up here and said, you know, you need to have some guts. You need to grow a backbone. You know, you need to do this, you need to do that. Well, we're representing more than just the people that are standing at the podium at the time. And so sometimes when you're telling us to grow a backbone, we have. It's just not in accordance to what you want us to do. So I just want everyone to understand that just because we don't necessarily agree or we don't verbalize our agreement, sometimes we're just taking that in to digest it. You know, you brought up a point, very good. We hear some very good points every time. And I'm sitting there thinking, I didn't even think of that. I need some time to digest it, some time to think it through, and we need to. I think sometimes we have a tendency, the public has a tendency to come in and lay things on the commission that we have nothing to do with that. And I don't know if we have a publication or a handout that the public could get so they could see what our responsibilities are. You know, what our domain is, what we can and cannot handle. I know there's some things brought up that would fall directly under the sentencing judge and the sheriff. We don't have anything to do with that. And they're great ideas. I mean, I thought they were just superb ideas. And I don't care to listen to them, but we can't act on that. We don't do that. So, and then I think sometimes it gets a little too personal. We're men and women sitting up here trying to do a job, trying to do our best. And I guess the thing, I'm gonna vent, but the thing that really irritates me the most is when Speaker of the Public says, I thought you all were Christians. I thought you all were godly. You know, as to say, if you don't agree with me, then you're not a Christian or you're not a godly man. Well, that's an insult. And I think if you say that, then you need to go back and do a little Bible research and understand that God wouldn't be pleased with comments like that. And I take total offense to it, and it doesn't make me want to look too keenly at your proposition. Those are some things that I had jotted down earlier. But I think it would help the process if we would follow those things, be concise, be in control, be on point, know what you're going to say. And if we did the question thing, as Nancy said, I never thought of that. That was a great, and it takes away the redundancy. We don't have it repeated over and over again. And it's clear. And then when you get an answer, it's not off the top of someone's head. It's got some meat to it. Okay. Thank you.
I have a question on, when you submit the question that's going to be added to the committee
Me?
meeting. Yes, Nancy.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I should have addressed you.
That's okay.
So if we are going to do that, when is the appropriate time? Do we want that the Monday before the committee meeting on Thursday? Is that an appropriate length of time to get your questions in?
I mean, I think so, but I think some of that's gonna, like, we're waiting for feedback from you all. So I think if I had a question, and it's probably, y'all, not gonna be a question as much that has to do with something on the agenda. It's gonna be a question that's gonna be more personal to those people. It's gonna be something they need help with. It's gonna be something that's gonna be personal to them that they need help with. So what happens is if you feel like you can't call your commissioner, or if you call your commissioner feels like it needs to go into a committee, they can put it into the committee, of course. But if you feel like it's something that you really want to discuss with someone and you want to see it happen, just an idea that may be a great idea that you just need to put in a committee, then, none of these are gonna be such an emergency, I don't think, but it does need to be in enough time that it hits the packet and you treat it like any other item, any other item on the agenda. Because what used to happen is, depending on what committee you were on, I mean, I was over public service, and I can't tell you, one of the favorite places to put everything was in public service. And so for the next week, all I did was run around and try to find answers so that when stuff came up, you could help somebody. And then, I mean, for me, everybody in town had my phone number. So it wasn't anything to get phone calls, And I know one time we were looking at the garbage fund, we were talking about whether or not we were gonna do curbside garbage service still. We took a survey and I gave my phone number out to the newspaper, and so they were calling, and I was trying to keep down, what it was to bring back to public service so we could know what to do. But I do think it's vital. I think it's vital that the people feel like they need to be heard. And I think it's just as vital that they don't be rude. Because you get rude and I get redneck, and that's just the way it is. And I think that's the way most of us are. So, if you want me to help you, I'll do anything I can to help you. But you get rude, I'm done.
That's well
And
said.
I think most people feel like, well, I mean, y'all don't
No,
want
I
us
mean,
to be mean to y'all,
You're exactly right.
So, but I have a few more things. Do y'all want to hear the rest of this?
Yes.
Okay. So one of them, we talked about things that we were supposed to look at. We were given pages of things we were supposed to look at. And one of them, this is where I just put the page number and the number. So one of them was establish a method to amend your local rules. It is usually accomplished by requiring 2/3 vote amendment. Consider allowing the rules to be amended by simple majority within the first 3 months of the new commission's 4-year term. I think, and this is just from being a new commissioner and then being a commissioner that had some years on her, I think there's certain things that you need a 2/3 vote for. I think when you come in, and anybody that's been a new commissioner, and that's been every one of y'all sitting here, and David was a new county mayor, so, I mean, we've all been new. There's a big learning curve, y'all. You don't just come in and immediately know what it is. I mean, there's a huge learning curve. I think that you need to make sure, when I went on commission, we were a whole new 7 commissioners. There was 7 commissioners that had experience, and there was 7 new commissioners that came on. We didn't have a clue, y'all. We wanted to do what we wanted to do, the best we could for our community. We were willing to work. We were willing to help you. We had new ideas. It was fresh blood. But I think that you need to be careful about changing your rules in the first 3 months. There are reasons some of those rules are set like that. And I think as a new commissioner, we come on and, I mean, we are on fire. And you stay on fire. You just learn that there's certain things you can and can't do. I mean, just because you've been elected doesn't mean that you can do, you can't do it all. You just can't. There's guidelines. There's stipulations you have to go by. There's TCA codes. There's the Constitution of the State of Tennessee. I mean, there's certain things we have to follow. So I would just be careful about that. Establish guidelines how committee members are appointed and how officers of the committee, chair, vice chair, and secretary are established. Do y'all not kind of have that now?
Honor of the chair. Honor of the chairman.
Oh, I was like,
I'm
what is
sorry.
that?
It's the honor of who we
That's right.
elect.
That's,
Yes.
and I think it needs to be. I
I
mean,
think
that's who
they're,
he's gonna
I
work
think
with,
they're
and I
unwritten,
think, yeah.
unwritten.
Don't you think that needs to, I think that
Absolutely.
needs to stay.
Yeah.
Establish a committee to review your local rules once a year. You know, I don't think that's such a bad idea, because you could put that in a committee just because as life changes, things changes, our community changes. I know when we went from rural to urban, you know, there was certain things that changed. So I think that's really a good idea. I think that would be an easy fix, an easy something to create. Naming the standing committees, and I thought we already have those, don't we?
We do.
Okay. Establish the number of members each committee, including special committees. Since we've not adopted one of the financial management laws, you know, that kind of falls under the chairman again, and I think that needs to be where that stays. So, all my notes.
I'll get started. There's a lot of discussion, Randy. A lot of items. Nancy just brought up some excellent points. Bobby did as well. I appreciate those comments. I like submitting questions to the committees so they can be answered. You know, when the public speaks,
They give an answer.
we need to give them an answer. Like one of y'all said, it may not be the answer they want, but I'm going to start in reverse, the 10-day rule. I also agree with the 10-day rule in its premise. However, I think I can see an opportunity as 10 days the magic number. I don't have a problem with that. I get it. It's from committee to commission. I understand that. But what if holiday or we have a special call meeting on the Tuesday following that Monday, and it just happens to be something that needs to be taken care of? I'm wondering out loud, is 5 to 7 days enough? I don't have a problem with that time frame or discussion. I just think, is that something we could discuss? The idea I get, and I'll support, but I feel that it might be open for discussion of what ifs, and to be in the best interest of the county. That's my discussion on the 10-day rule. But in itself, yes, I understand it and I support it. And
Need
if
to
it
be a
stay-
period in there.
Excuse me?
Need to be a pause in between.
Yes, yes.
agree.
Yeah, there definitely needs to be a pause so we can look. I mean, several comments from the public have been very on point, and like Bobby said, they bring excellent points. They're not wrong, but we're not wrong either. We just need to find how the cogs work together.
And out of curiosity, what is the reason why 10 days was established to start with?
Well,
Is
I
that
think, I can't speak to that. David was the mayor.
I mean, you want to speak to that?
Well, Chris and I were talking about this briefly a while ago. It's my recollection that the 10 days came from the time that the committees meet until the next commission meeting. I may be incorrect about that, but that's my recollection.
that would seem logical.
Is that what you remember, Linda?
I think what they did was from one commission to the next commission meeting, then you all changed it and clarified it to be from committee to commission in 2015.
Well, now I remember it being it was the 10-day rule, and the way the 10-day rule, do you want to talk about this?
Well, no, I mean,
Because, you know, I mean, I'm kind
free
of,
to.
I'm a girl, so I'm kind of bossy. So the way the 10-day rule kind of started was because there were many times that there would be, and mainly what the 10-day rule, and David, you can attest to this, and Linda, you know, you can too, because you were here. So the 10-day rule is if you wanted to spend money, or if you wanted to sign something, a contract, or if you wanted to do something that was going to cost money, or it was going to bind the hands. There would have been times that it would be laid down and you would see it at commission. Now, you can vote on that at commission, But I don't know how you can do any legwork on that, if that's, and that's where it got, for me, maybe I was slower than every other commissioner on there, and if that be the case, I'm good with that.
No.
But I wanted to be able to ask questions. I had questions. Well, county commission was not the time to ask the questions. You ask the questions at the meeting, you do the background work, you do the footwork, you see where the money's coming from, you see what it's gonna cost, what it's gonna be per penny when you start spending that kind of money. You couldn't do that at a commission meeting. So that is how, is that kind of what you remember? That is how the 10-day rule came into being. It gave you enough time to do the homework and the background work that you should do before you ever vote to pass anything that costs money. So,
Again, Miss Nancy, I would certainly agree with that pause. And we want to make the right decision. I just wonder, is 10 days the magic number, or is it something that we could discuss to open up the possibility that we need to enact something within the month?
so let me ask you this. This is, okay. So you have your committee meeting.
Yes.
And then you have your commission meeting. So in that time frame, and I mean, I'm not a commissioner, it's gonna be what you all want. So, but in that time frame, if you get, let's say that you don't do the 10-day rule, let's say you don't get it at committee, because that's basically where your 10-day. So you don't get it at committee, you get it 4 days later. How are you gonna ever discuss that? If you have to approve it, if it's something that needs to be approved at your next county commission meeting, you're very limited on when you can discuss it. You're
True.
very limited on how you can discuss it. So you cannot discuss your vote. You cannot discuss how you're going to vote. So I think that what you do is if you close that time frame, and then do you wait to the next committee meeting so you can discuss it? Because some things just need to be discussed.
This is the example that I'll use. It happened to us this year. We set aside the 10-day rule. It wasn't, I don't think that anybody wanted to, but the way it happened, we had our regular committee meetings on a Monday, and we followed on that Tuesday with another committee meeting. Well, that only gave us 9 days to our commission meeting. And we had a committee meeting to discuss and do all the legwork and get the information, but yet we only had 9 days to the next full commission meeting. That's why I wonder, I mean, we can always vote to set aside, but I don't want to do it that way.
I understand, yeah.
I don't want to do that. I'd rather it be in stone what we do.
So what would be the magic number? I mean, what
That's
would be,
what I'm
because you would, well, I don't think there is one. I mean, life,
Right.
there's not a person in here that life hasn't snuck up on us at some time or other, and you're like, I don't even know what happened. But there also shouldn't be tons, I mean, there shouldn't really be tons of times that you can't wait for a committee meeting. I mean, if you know something's coming down the pike, it's not like, and I don't want to simplify things, but it's not like a yard sale where if you don't buy it now, you're not going to get it. I mean, normally in the county government and in what the commissioners do, there is time. There is time.
True.
So I think you don't want, it's kind of like a catch-22, okay? You've got this incident that happened, and is it the only time in your career that it's happened?
Yes, my very short career it is.
Well, but I mean, that's still a career, so, and I don't remember any times, really. Do you remember anything that we had to? No. Because, the way that we're set up and the way the government pays their bills, the way they sign their contracts, stuff's coming. I mean, you know it. It's not a surprise. So, I mean, whether y'all want to keep it 10 days or not, my only thing is you really you don't need to ever let it get back to where somebody lays something in front of you and you're asked to vote for it.
And we agree.
That's fair to no one.
Yes.
It's not fair to anybody, and it's especially
Yes.
not fair to the commissioners.
Right.
I mean, it's really not fair to you guys.
I totally agree. Okay, with the premise of the 10-day, I'm just wondering, is the number something we could discuss to make it 7 days?
Well, yeah, I mean, you
Or-
could discuss anything, but if you do that, you're gonna have to, every time that happens, you're gonna have to call a meeting, or I think you should. I think you should call a committee meeting so that people can come back, because we've told them, we have now preached to them, you wanna know what's going on in this county, you come to the committee meetings. You wanna know what's going on in this county, you come to the committee meetings.
Okay.
So-
To your point there, I agree again. I don't think the 10-day, or that anything should be acted unless the committee has met to discuss that information. So that would be a stipulation that I wouldn't have a problem with.
And you need to pick your timing, because realistically, you could call a committee meeting right before a county commission meeting, and that's not right.
No, I agree again.
So-
I don't like that type of perception of not being open.
Yeah, I mean, y'all just have to decide on that, because that to me is kind of a county commission thing as a whole, you know, if you feel good about doing that. But I just really, that is one thing that I really support. I mean, I really
understand.
support the fact that you get to see it, you get to do your homework, and then you get to vote on it, and the people know what's coming up, you know, so.
I agree with your comment also that the learning curve is real. It is real. I've learned a lot, and I'll be the first to admit, I feel that we need to adopt each year, or it be standing that we use Robert's Rules latest edition as our premise, or as our parliamentary authority each year. You know, I fail. I think I know a little bit, but then I find out, no, I don't. And so I think that would be something that we could all get better at. And we failed. You know, it's all about having a orderly meeting and controlled meeting. Not to control anyone, but to be under control. And it's like, you know, adopting the rule for members speaking, you know, allowing them that time to speak from the floor without interruption. You know, it was brought up the other day about Wayne, and apologies to Wayne if that was the case. I took it as a discussion, and I've not watched the film, but maybe I interrupted him. I don't know. But my apologies, Wayne, if I did.
You did.
Well, forgive me. Okay, it wasn't intentional. A lot of things are said and taken intentionally. This is, you know, I see us as people working together, not, I don't know. I grew up in a forgiving home, I guess. I made a mistake. I learned, hopefully. So my apologies, Wayne. And we've got to do better. But allowing that person to speak uninterrupted. So I get that. Rules for public speaking. I want this to be very clear. I think it's adamant, it's imperative that the public has a right to speak. However, in saying that, in our Opens Meeting Act of Tennessee state law, it requires no time for public speaking. They have a right to speak when there's a vacancy that has to be filled. If they're a registered voter, they can come. But I don't support that. I support to continue pretty much what we've been doing. Okay, I think it's a great thing to hear from the public. Mr. Curtis was here and he told us that the people had a right to express themselves, and I agree. We've got calls, we've got emails, we've got text. I want to know what they think. Mr. Holm brought out the point that we represent more than who's here. I hear from more than who's here. They trust me in some cases. That's why they voted me in. Anyway, back to public speaking. Ms. Noy brought up once in the last meeting, I think, 20 to 30 minutes. I kind of agree that 30 minutes is an ample amount of time to get to articulate the arguments or your points. I hear a sermon almost every week at church, and it's 30 minutes, thereabouts. I get the point. But in that, let's say there's 30 minutes. I also feel like there ought to be a sign-up sheet that they could come in, 30 minutes available, 30 minutes before the meeting, 30 minutes available before the meeting that they could sign up to 5 minutes before the meeting to give the chairman time of whether it be committee meetings or whether it be the full commission, to give the chairman time to go over that. Up to 5 minutes before. Okay, somebody comes in late, wants to speak. I want to speak. The chairman has the right to call, and the commission can vote. Everything can be voted on or changed by the chair or a commissioner, bring a motion, a second, and a majority vote. I don't want to exclude anyone, but yet, just to make rules. That's it. So, let me go to item 2. State the item to be discussed on the sign-in. The topic, your name, address, topic to be discussed. And if possible, state your position. And if we have opposing views, then we equally divide that time. You have 3 minutes. Each person has up to 3 minutes. I think that can be as well articulated. Okay, you have that right. If you have more than available time, you have that right to speak how many ever you want to speak, to divide that time equally. Whether it be 10, whether it be 5, 7, whatever number you want to come up with, you have that time, and you have 3 minutes to speak up to that equally divided time. That's just a thought, guys. I'm not trying to manipulate, dictate. It's a thought. As I say again, we can always extend that time by the chair recognizing that, or a commissioner from the floor making a motion that we allow more time, and offering, maybe even stating how much time you're giving them, and then a majority vote taken from the floor. And speaking will be allowed in the order of the list.
Are you saying a simple majority?
Yeah, simple majority. Yeah, simple majority. And, again, I think it's important that we hear opposing views. I've learned a lot. Whether I wanted to hear it or not, I've learned. So it's all good, but to Bob's point, sometimes it can be a little too personal, seemingly, or I don't know. I know that's our job. That's our job.
And I have one other question in regards to the 10-day rule. What happens if how did, Commissioner Perky, how did you deal with it if there was a vacation, a holiday on that Monday? And then would we have a committee meeting on Tuesday? That would be 9 days. Is that still acceptable?
Well, I know the committee meetings were altered, in the event of a holiday. I don't ever recall a situation where a holiday interfered with the 10-day rule.
No, I don't either.
So,
Yeah.
and to Chris's point on that, the commission may want to set a minimum. You might want to say, shall have a minimum of 7 days or whatever, before the meeting, and that would give you some flexibility to either call a meeting if you had to, or if you had a situation where a holiday interfered. But I don't ever recall it interfering.
No, because you have to remember that some of that, you have to publish when your meetings are, so you have to,
True.
you kind of have to know, you kind of have to know what's coming down the road, and it could be an issue. And really what you could do is if it was something that you weren't sure was going to make that meeting, you could go ahead and call a second meeting. You could always cancel the second one, but at least you followed the rules about the publications of your meetings. So I think some of that's just, knowing the rules and making sure, that you kind of work within those guidelines.
On that, Chris, you was talking 30 minutes.
Yes, sir.
All right, you've got, the first session, you talk on agenda items.
Yes, sir.
So say you get 3 minutes to talk
Yes.
about,
Yeah, I wasn't totally finished, but you go ahead. I'll finish up in just a second,
Okay.
but go right ahead.
when you get through, well, I got permission from him. Wasn't you through?
No, sir.
Well,
It's
you
all
wasn't
right.
through, Randy.
It's all right. It's all right. Go ahead, Wayne. Go ahead.
You trying to put it 30 minutes, but you got something to bring up about the jail? That's on the committee, or public service? Are you talking 30 minutes throughout the whole building, all,
No.
just the meeting, just at the beginning of the meeting?
Well, I think it's open for discussion, but in committee meetings, you have that time each committee. You have that time for public speaking at each committee, and that may be open for debate. Or if we're in a full commission meeting, you've got 30 minutes before, And public speaking at the end, you have 30 minutes then. But during committee meetings, it could be that you have 30 minutes at each committee meeting. And I offer that as a suggestion and something to consider. 3-minute time limit for each person to speak. You don't have to go downstairs. You can come right in, sign up, and speak. It won't inconvenience anyone to be here ahead of time. I mean, prior to the meeting is what I'm saying, other than the day of meeting. But I offer that as a suggestion, Wayne, as just something to consider as a starting point.
So you could speak, you got 3 items on the agenda to start with. 3 minutes is not very long to talk on 3 items. But then again, if you get permission, like we're doing now, to speak for 5 minutes, that's gonna give you a little more time to say, maybe speak for 3 items. And then when you come down to each committee, audit committee, you got time to speak on that. You got time, all the other committees, the jail study committee, you've got all those you can speak on.
As Ms. Phillips just aptly pointed out, though, that committee meetings is where we get the work done. And if you allow 30 minutes public speaking at each committee meeting, I think, that's given quite a bit. Each committee meeting will have 30 minutes, whether it be jail, audit, personnel, or finance. So,
I've noticed the last few meetings we've not had but 3 or 4 speakers. Now today, I think you got about 10. So everybody wants to talk about something. Say it was a regular committee meeting or commission meeting. Who's to say what I can talk about that Jeff's gonna talk about the same thing and Taylor gonna talk about the same thing? They might wanna talk about something altogether different. And to me, it'd be hard to coordinate what everybody's gonna talk about if you make a list of it.
Would that be the reason that would really cause us to have sign-up sheet for those topics on the agenda? Because there's only gonna be so many topics on the agenda each time anyway. And if people signed up to speak and 3 or 4 people signed up to speak on behalf of that one topic, could we not ask them to pick a spokesperson to give that discussion and then give them some freedom to speak their mind on it, but somehow just have it where it's a more structured meeting?
I don't know on that, they're the people gonna do the speaking. I don't know how long you can say, come on, Jeff, let me have don't you talk, let me talk, your place. So, you see what I'm talking
I
about?
don't think that's what he's talking about. I'm thinking about if you have 20 people in here and they all want to say the same thing. First of all, probably most of them don't want to speak because they're just going to have to get up here and it's going to make them nervous and they don't want to speak. But I do think that, like, if you have a spokesman and you are going to have a few that are going to want to speak and they need to be able to speak, but I think at the end of the day, you need to say who supports this, and there can be a show of hands because then the commission's going to know. Not everybody likes to speak publicly. So I think that you do need to be able to speak. I don't, know that, if you had 20 people, I really don't think 20 people would want to say something because I think there'd be a lot of nerves and, I don't know why, because we're all just people, but people get nervous about it. And so I think if you have some kind of control, and not control on our part, but just some kind of control of the meeting, because what happens is if everybody gets mad, guys, we all know this to be true. So if everybody gets mad, you're done. Everybody's done. Y'all are done, you're mad, you don't want to talk about it, the commission doesn't want to talk about it. But if you can discuss stuff, if you can truly discuss stuff and you have something really positive, we get good ideas, or we used to, and I'm sure they still do. I'm not on this, but there's good ideas that come from the public. Everybody brings something to the table from their life. And those are really good ideas, and I think we need to hear them. But I don't think you need to be just bombarded. The commission isn't stupid. They know you know, that you don't like something, and they understand that, and they try to do their best to make it so that most people are happy, but it's not just the people sitting in here. There's a lot of people out there. This is like a 60,000 population county, so, you know, there's a lot of people. But I don't think any of these people that care, and they come here to say their piece and to speak their piece, and I think they should be heard, but I think it needs to be done civilly, as if you and I were talking about it standing outside on the sidewalk.
That's, I think, what brought it on was back a year and a half ago, we had the maintenance agreement. And I looked out in the audience, and everybody out there was bald-headed, 6'3", 6'4", with goatees. They were mad about what Planning was wanting to do for them. That's the only time I've ever seen it happen. I guess, I don't know how many spoke, 60 or 70, and it was the same thing over and over and over. But I'm not gonna tell old Bubba he can't talk.
Don't be afraid of Bubba, they're usually pretty nice.
And that hadn't happened since.
No, but I think when you have that and people are that impassioned, I mean, my question to you then would be this. If that was done in committee, like it should have gone through a committee if you were gonna change that, why would that not have been taken care of at committee? Why would you not have listened to them? Because that is where the work is done, guys. I mean, nobody may like that, but it doesn't change the fact that's where the work's done. So why would they not have come then? Or why would you not have taken that same item, if you saw how impassioned people were, and not put it back in committee?
I
Put it
think
back in committee.
what happened on that, it was in committee.
Yeah.
Brought up in committee. But social media got on there and told Bubba about this big meeting coming up in 10 days. And they pulled in here on their Harleys.
But see,
they got every
that's,
right to do what they want to.
I mean, why would you even do that? Because nothing's gonna happen at that commission meeting if you really see, okay, Bubba pulls in here on his Harley, and you see that they're upset, and they're now at a commission meeting that you know is not a working meeting. I mean, it is a meeting that you come and you finish what you've started in those committees. So now you see that they're that upset, and if it's something that you truly think that needs to go back to committee so that they can come in, they can drive their Harleys again down here, but do it in the time that it should be done, where it should be done. And you're always gonna have stuff on social media. I mean, you may as well that's the life we live in now.
But it was where they all come in, and a lot of them had the same thing.
So what do you do in committee about that,
Some said the
Wayne?
same thing over and over, you know.
But what do you
And
do?
that's all right.
Are you saying don't let them speak, or are you saying do let them speak?
No, I'm just saying that 30 minutes, and this other deal might take an hour.
But that is so rare, just like you said. But that needs to happen at committee. Not saying you can't come here at commission and do whatever, you speak to. But if you want something to happen, it needs to happen at committee.
Nancy, that was one of my points, and to Wayne's point, we see that in the public. We get the interaction, we know they're unhappy, so we can set aside that rule. We can, from the chair, or from a commissioner from the floor, and grant more time. We can go to recess and allow them to speak. If it's that impassioned, there's ways around this. If that's what it was. And to Wayne's point also, he's right. We came through committee. We didn't understand everything that was going on. We saw it. When I went home that night, my phone started lighting up. There was no way I could support it, okay? When my calls started coming in from people in my district, outside my district, I got the calls. So I knew that was a no.
So why was it not sent back to committee?
Probably should have been.
I mean, that's what you do, you send it back to committee.
I'm going to call learning curve on that. When the people spoke, it did get sent back to me. We didn't vote.
Okay.
No, we didn't vote on it. And it went to bed. It's probably not going to come back unless it's a whole different format.
Any additional?
No, I think I've got on the public speaking and the 10-day rule, I'm good.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm reminded of what Howard Baker said one time. Try to be kind to the person who has the opposing view because they may be right. So I think we would all do well to remember that famous saying that he had. But I'm also reminded of what LBJ said one time. And he said sometimes being in political office is like being a donkey in a hailstorm. You just got to stand there and take it. And I can assure you that there were many nights in this room over almost 16 years that I just sat here and took it. So if you're an elected official, you have to be ready to do that. I noticed the rules that the commission adopted for public speaking back in 2015 and then reviewed in 2019, where you established that you had the public comment on agenda items up front and then public comment in general at the end, which I think is a very good thing. I would reiterate again that no one has approached me or talked to me about changing public comment. That's just not happened. So it seems when you review the other counties that everyone allows 3 minutes, 5 minutes, a 30-minute period. I believe Williamson County allows a 30-minute period. So whatever you're comfortable with those allowances is what it's going to remain. As Nancy said, that's up to the commission. What are you comfortable with? You have to make a provision for the public comment. We all know that. We know how vital it is because you may learn things during that public comment that you did not know. The 10-day rule, I'm a supporter of the 10-day rule. The commission would have the authority, I would think, to say that you would desire to have things in a minimum time before the county commission. It wouldn't necessarily have to be 10 days, could be 7 days, but at a minimum, you would have to have an opportunity to review that in a committee setting or otherwise before the commission meeting. So to Chris's point, it doesn't have to be 10 days. I think that was just when the committees met and you had 10 days to the next commission meeting. I'm a strong believer in the committee process. I enjoyed the committee process when I was county mayor much more than I enjoyed the county commission meetings, I can assure you. Why? Because the work does get done at the committee level. It's much less formal. It is really, I believe the county commission meeting needs to be a formal setting. Mm-hmm. It needs to be respectful. It needs to be the final say that the legislative body has on what's being voted on. But if something cannot get out of committee, then certainly it doesn't need to come to county commission. I recall some appointments that I had. This rarely happened, maybe a couple of times over 16 years. But I always sent those appointments to committee first, because if they couldn't get out of committee, they didn't need to come to the floor. You need to pick somebody else. So I believe strongly in the committee process. And the committee process can be a little more rancorous, if you will, because you're trying to get into the details of what you have before you and trying to understand that. And then the other commissioners have to trust the committees. Mm-hmm. You have to trust that that committee has looked at something thoroughly, and if it comes here with a committee recommendation, then generally it's going to pass. I mean, rarely does a committee recommend something it doesn't pass. I noticed some good things from other counties, and I noticed some things that I would not be in favor of. I was hoping that CTAS could give us a model county. Perhaps one of the other counties that they feel like has a very good operating procedure, but I don't think we've been able to get that. So just one final thought. whatever the rules are, they need to be simple, needs to be one page, and it needs to be prominently displayed at every meeting. Either on the electronic screens or on the actual documents themselves, or even posted at the entrance to the meetings or the commission meetings. The rules need to be posted there so that maybe when you're in the audience and you're looking at your agenda and there's something being considered that you're not particularly interested in, you can at least flip it over and look at what the rules are so that it's prominently before you at all times. So I would end by saying this. We're not here to do anything to anybody. We're not here to stifle public comment. I think the mission of this committee was just to bring more of a formality to the county commission setting so that things can be considered in a business-like fashion. And you don't have 3 or 4 people over here talking while 3 or 4 people over here are talking, and then somebody in the audience is waving and shouting something. Because business decisions, I think we all agree, cannot be made in those settings. And, you know, the chairman of the commission is a very important position. And I had the opportunity to serve with many chairmen over 16 years. Probably 6 or 7 different chairmen. That person is very important to the control of the meeting and to the order of the meeting. Generally, if a chairman attempts to call order in any meeting, order will be restored generally. So that person is very important. And I would just encourage, whether or not you're people in the audience, whether you're somebody at a podium, or whether you're a member of the legislative body, that you direct all of your comments to the chairman. Because if you get in a back and forth with a particular commissioner, it's not going to end well. And I've been guilty of that during my service here at the courthouse. But address your comments to the chairman, whatever they are. If you look at it just based on that, you would think the chairman is getting the brunt of everything. But the orderly fashion of a meeting occurs when the commission members or members of the public direct their comments to the chairman. I think that's very important, and you'll see an orderly process as a result of that. So thank you for the opportunity to comment.
Comments?
Randy, I have one note I forgot. Anything that this committee does recommend, if we come to a consensus of recommendation for any item or for all items, I would prefer that be sent to CTAS for review before we send it to the full commission, that we are, in fact, in our rights or whatever it may be, that it's a solid recommendation.
And I think that they've been receptive to any of those comments. Mayor Britton did bring some information to me this week on the County Technical Assistance Service. We will run it through that at the end. Right
Okay.
now, we're just trying to get to an understanding of what we desire.
Yes.
And then how we pull it all together before we send it off to have it reviewed.
Just,
I'm sorry. No, I'm really bad about that.
Ms. Phillips?
I know that there's been some conversation about picking a new chair during election year. Is that something y'all want to discuss? No? Yes? No?
that's a new one.
Well, during an election year.
I'm sorry,
Okay.
you're speaking of when, if the chair and the pro tem are not reelected, then.
Yes.
I got you.
Yes,
Go ahead.
but I just think that may be something that y'all, if you're doing rules and regulations, you might want to throw that in there too, because that would make it a lot calmer for your first meeting.
Absolutely.
If you didn't have, if your chairman and your vice chair were not reelected. So why don't you all just think about potentially electing somebody or appointing somebody to start that very first meeting and do it at your August meeting. Because it's gonna be September. Isn't that right? So it's gonna be September when it happens, but at least you would have somebody. So in August, you know if you're gonna take office again or not. And if you don't, then that gives you the ability to appoint somebody for that first September meeting that'll just open the meeting and kind of start the meeting. They're not really chairman, they're just kind of the person, and I think that would keep down a lot of anything. Then you just do your election like you normally do, but you already have a person that's gonna be able to start that next meeting without there being a whole lot of conflict. Because it can happen. You can have, I mean, the year that we came on, Lyndon and I came on, it was 7 new commissioners. I don't know how they did it, but anyway.
I'm not a member of the committee, but I would like to add something to what she has said, because that certainly is needed. But there's also the possibility that during a regular meeting, the chairman may not be present and the vice chairman may not be present. Then what do? You need kind of something
No,
in
okay,
time.
normally, and correct me if I'm wrong, your strongest committee is your finance committee. So I would think that your finance person would possibly step up and hold the meeting. And that's something to think about, because that's one of your strongest committees is your finance committee. So, I mean, however you want to do it, but that could be your third step right there. And then everybody knows, they know the rules, you know. It's just a suggestion.
Mr. Chairman, yes, 1 second. Just to bring a little light to what Commissioner Cutshaw brought up about the 10-day rule. It was brought up and said, you know, that you guys don't remember a time that that's happened, but that has happened in every calendar year since that rule's been in effect. Because in October, Columbus Day falls on the second Monday. The meeting is always shifted to that Tuesday, and then everything is voted on during the commission. So only 9 days in between. So yes, it has happened. So we do need to look, can we do a 7-day or a 5-day? Because the 10-day itself is just really not fit exactly for every situation, in my opinion.
Thank you. Ms. Phillips?
Well, you have to remember that every commission, you know, you can waive that. So you have that ability. It's not like, you know, that you can't on those times. And I'm not saying not to do it, but I'm saying that the 10-day rule doesn't actually tie your hands. You know, you have some leeway because that's what you all do. You have that ability. So, you know, you could do that. I just as a citizen, I would, and having been a commissioner, I know what it's like to have something laid down before you and you're wanting it, you just can't do it. You can't do it responsibly, in my opinion, which is not worth much, but.
Mr. Phillips, yes, I do agree with you wholeheartedly. I was just bringing out the point that
Yeah,
it does
I think that's a
happen
good
in the
idea.
10 days. If we miss that one time, when we do the 9 days, that is a set meeting time. We vote on that. So as a body, we vote basically to step away from the 10-day rule and go with 9 days on that, because we vote on a meeting schedule constantly. And then, you know, we go through, but it, for lack of a better way of saying it, it ends the ability for some complaints if we say a 7-day. I don't think cut it completely out, but the 10-day itself is, it locks you down to a specific amount of time.
Ms. Phillips?
So what if you just said at the committee meetings before your commission meeting? I mean, then,
That's true.
you know, that way you've got 10 days, 9 days, 7 days. The calendar's not really
Right.
going to affect
Right.
that. It's just going to be at the committee meetings before
Right.
the commission meeting that it has to be voted on. And that way, you know, you kind of take the calendar, the days out of it.
I think that would be a marvelous idea.
It would, and unless there happened to be a commission or a committee meeting on that Thursday or that Tuesday, and we're voting a special call meeting on Tuesday and we're voting Thursday. That's 2 days. I'm just saying.
Oh, I agree, but do you think that would ever really happen, that commission would allow that?
No, possibly not, but I'm just looking ahead.
Yeah.
And the negative connotations that come when you set aside a rule, there's negative connotations. I mean, you're doing something underhanded, you're doing something wrong.
Well, you're not always gonna please everybody, we all know that. So, you know, you're not doing anything wrong, you're not doing anything underhanded, you're just trying to figure out days. And I think as long as you give commissioners, just out of respect and out of them being able to do their job, enough time to look at stuff that you're asking them to vote for. I mean, and if not, I'd just put it back in committee, I wouldn't even vote on it. So that's kinda how we would've handled it years ago. It would've just gone back to committee, we're like, we're not doing this.
Mr. Chair. This is back to public speaking. I was thinking about this, the time that we allot, and I feel like because as has been brought up, the work's done in committee, things need to be brought up in committee. So I feel like we need to weigh a little heavily with our time for committee meetings. When the public comments section comes up on a committee meeting day, we need to allow more time. That's where they bring their ideas, and because when we get to the commission meeting, you know, we're going through a formality there, especially the comment section at the end of a commission meeting. Everything's done, and when we have public comment section, then, you know, it's other than to get a negative point across, there's nothing that can be done. So if we're going to do anything with the time on that, let's allow more time for public comment, whether it be before or after, it doesn't matter, at the committee meetings. And if we want to taper some off, we can take it off at the commission meetings.
We could do that specifically at the end of the commission meeting too.
I think that would fill a need for the public, and then we have a chance to act on it. We hear it at the commission meetings, but we can't act on it. But in committee meetings, we have 10 days or whatever that we can actually dig into it and act on it.
And it seems like when the public spoke at the last meeting, it was really that they wanted the 3 to 5 minutes at the first, and 3 to 5, at least 3 at the end of the meeting.
And that's fine,
Yep.
especially for committee. I think at the commission meeting itself, especially at the end, I mean, what can you do besides come out and give your opinion, which is valid, but it would be better served everybody, the public, us, everybody, if we had more time for public comment at the committee meetings.
But every once in a while, at a commission meeting, at the very end, you will have somebody who will come to the podium with a completely new idea or new problem that has not been brought before the commission. And I think, you know, I'm glad that we had that opportunity for that person to share their concerns. You know, it had nothing to do with any item on the agenda, but it was a problem they were having in their district.
And that's fine, and I'm not saying, you know, do away with it, but really encourage the public on committee meetings to, especially for things that we're dealing with. But no, I'm not saying cut their time out, but just maybe if we give more time at the committee meetings, then we can have 10 or, you know, a week and a half, whatever time frame in there to act on it.
And that's a good point, that at the commission meeting, we could have the speaker's request to speak.
Right.
And if there are multiple people wishing to discuss the same topic, then we could have a spokesman for that.
Exactly.
So as long as they have plenty of time to speak in the committee meeting where the work is being done.
Very good.
I always have something to say, sorry. So a parliamentarian, are y'all considering that?
Not yet.
Well, your parliamentarian's gonna help you with your Robert's Rules of Orders. So what's your thought? I mean, I don't think that's a bad idea, because I think you have a point person that really needs to know Robert's Rules of Order. And then that way, if you have a question, or if there is a question, you have a person, a point person, who can come back and help you with that. So that's just a idea about the Robert's Rules of Order.
And that was one of the things that Mr. Curtis emphasized too, that you'll utilize Robert's rules if you adopt them, and then you'll use your local rules to make differences in time settings and things of that nature if you need to modify from Robert's rules.
Well, it gives you a starting place.
And how would we go about finding a parliamentarian that would be?
Well, I don't get paid the big bucks for those kind of things, so I just think, you know, I'm sure that there's somebody that knows Robert's Rules of Order very well. The book is really thick to read, but most of us have sat down, you know, when you're on commission, you've read the book. You didn't really understand some of it, but,
Wayne's volunteering.
We've got a,
oh, you're volunteering?
we've got a parliamentarian sitting right back here. She's just finished up college, Miss Brotherton.
Really? Huh,
Before, we had Herbert Harville, who taught it in civics.
Yeah.
And
see, and I was lucky enough, really, Wayne, and you were too, when you first came on the first time. You got a lot of knowledge sitting on those commissions because they've been there for a long time.
well, we had it in agriculture. You get a motion, you second it, you question it, you vote on it, and you get an A on it. You can cheat. But,
Well, I just think the
Miss
parliamentarian.
Brotherton, we might wanna discuss it with her.
Well, I think that's for like after the meeting, isn't it, when you all get to tell us, you know, what we've done wrong. We've tried, that's all I can say.
Mr. Chairman, I think Commissioner Reed, who deals with the TSSAA all the time, is very familiar with Robert's Rules.
He's not here, so it's a good time to appoint him.
Voting by acclamation.
You're it.
Call this meeting back to order.
On the 10-day rule, talking to Charles Curtis, he says not always, that you can always handle it something differently. And I voiced that one time and got criticized for it. But I went by what Charles had said. Now, in county commission, if you think something's not going to happen or it won't happen, it will happen. And it happened to us when we had to make a vote on it. Something was thrown at us one night that we didn't have 10 days to vote on. Now, we're in the process of getting ready to build a jail, and this could happen. This could happen that if we don't put something in front of us and get this voted through, it could delay something for another month. So is there something that we could put in with that 10-day rule on a matter such as that? Is there something, I mean, because if you think it won't happen, it will happen. You know, I know in the 16 years, I think you said it never happened. Am I correct?
Well, that's been a long time ago. I mean, I've been gone from here almost 11 years, but, you know, I'm sure there were times that we had situations like that. But you do what you can to work around them.
Yeah. Well, one thing that he had said was that once it's presented to you, that the commission can vote at that time just to move it to the end of the meeting. To kind of like, okay, sit back and think about it for a moment. And then at the end of the meeting, discuss it and then vote on it. So I'm just saying that I'm in favor of what the majority wants to do. If majority votes to go that way, then I'm in favor to helping that situation work with what majority has voted for. And this situation right here is, we could see that. And, you know, do we want to hold up something for another month? You know, and that, with what we're getting ready to go through at the jail, that could happen. So I just say, you know, if the community wants to do a 10-day rule, I'm behind it. I'll work with it and then make it work, you know. But, sometimes I think you have to put in our, you know, options to say, if this does happen, we need to do this. Just a second.
I think it's a very dangerous place when you vote on something that's laid before you and it has to do with money. I just think it's a very dangerous place to be. I mean, I understand what you're saying. I just really think, because we built the annex with the jail, and I was trying to think, I mean, what came up that was so vital that you didn't even have 24 hours to be emailed something, or 48 hours, or 72 hours? What was so vital that it had to be laid in front of you the day of commission? And I'm not dogging anybody. I'm just asking, what was it? I mean, that's just a dangerous place to be. You were asking somebody to vote on money. They have to read it, to study it, to ask questions about it. That's not the place.
Well, that particular night, when we did this, we had voted for the 10-day rule to keep it, turned right around and broke the rule.
Yeah. But I guess my question is, what was it that was laid before you that was so important that it couldn't wait? Well, I mean, I understand that. Y'all see a lot of stuff. I do understand that.
I think we've already had that problem, this 10-day rule.
You're too close, yeah, okay.
It was, too close, good. We've already had it, Burwell, project manager for the jail. I think that's come up 3 times. We voted on, I believe, 3 times before we ever got it put to bed. And that 10-day rule is for, I think most of it is for contracts.
Money.
That's what it's about. And this was a contract deal, and we broke it because one time it wasn't published, put in the newspaper.
So you all had seen it.
We've had to go over it 3 times to get that Burwell to take it. I mean, to get the job.
Well, that's kind of different, Wayne, if you've seen it. I'm talking about, I mean, I have had stuff laid before me before and asked to vote on it. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to vote on it. So I think if you've seen it and it was just guidelines, stipulations, rules and regulations that had to go back and you had to look at it again, I think that's completely different than something being laid before you and you asking, you know, that you want, you can't do that. There's no way that somebody can, or at least I couldn't. I don't know how you could vote on something when you're asking to spend money and you've never seen it before. You're asking to sign a contract and you've never seen it before. I mean, how can you read and comprehend, digest it, look at it, make sure there's nothing in there? And it's, you know, the fact is, at the end of the day, y'all are voting on it. So it doesn't matter who makes the mistake. You say yes, your name forever in history is going to be on that document right there. But I think that was a little different. If it came before y'all 3 different times and you hadn't read it, that's your own fault.
Anyone have any additional comments in review of the samples? So we've covered the length of the meetings. We will go back now and try to put all this together in a document, have it back for review, and then if it meets the desires of the committee and it meets the requirements that we should provide for the citizens, then we can take it to CTAS at that point. And I think Mayor Britton has maybe a potential for a person to review this through an internship. And so if we could get an intern to go through and collect it, it wouldn't take a lot of work for everyone else, and then we can present it to CTAS and get that approval. Now, I would like to open it up. Well, first, before I do, is everyone confident that they've had a good time to express their viewpoints?
Randy?
Yes, sir.
You know, we heard 2 or 3 people say we want to listen to the public comments. Will we be allowing the people in the audience a chance to get in on what we just looked at? They may have the greatest idea we've ever heard of.
We hope.
It's on the agenda.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. On the item number 5, on how do you handle redundant comments, there was a good clause from Sumner County in that where the chairman had the ability to warn citizens if they're having additional or redundant, repetitive discussions on the same topics. I think it would be good to allow the chairman to at least call that to a close if that became the same story over and over. I know with a meeting that we had last term, there was one that went for about an hour and a half, and everyone was saying the same repetitive statements. And so in order to be efficient with our meetings, I would like to make the recommendation that we allow the chairman to make a determination on that.
Will you read that?
On the redundant comments, the commission chair may warn a citizen to offer original information when a citizen repeatedly makes comments on topics that have already been offered by the same speaker or a previous speaker.
Thank you.
It's Sumner County number 5. And that would give us a little bit more flexibility in the event that we need to do something to expedite the meetings. All right, with that, I would like to open it up to the public for comments on what we have discussed tonight. Does anyone want to speak to the committee? State your name and address, please.
My name is Elizabeth Brotherton, 339 Macedonia Road. I'm just going to start at the very end and then work my way up. The first thing that I have a high concern about is the redundant comment issue. Now, according to the Oxford Dictionary, redundant means that it is able to be omitted without the loss of meaning or function. Now, I speak solely for myself, but when I've made the effort to come out here and speak to you and made the effort to normally prepare a speech, I didn't have this agenda until about an hour or two before the meeting, but I would really like to be heard voicing my opinions and my version of my opinions and not just defer to someone else. And redundancy, if you're going to say, for example, that the words are losing meaning, then you're saying that that person's voice, in effect, is losing meaning. That's a very, very, very dangerous opinion to have, especially in public service. I highly caution each of you against taking that, because that really, really doesn't look good. Because, I mean, as you mentioned, there are thousands and thousands of people. And really, you only have a handful of those that come out to make an effort to speak to you. And what one may say negatively or positively about a certain item on the agenda, and if the same person if a different person gets up to speak about that same issue, is it really redundant if it's their opinion? Because in the past, I've even raised the issue that my commissioner won't return my emails, won't communicate with me. So the only avenue that I have other than emailing others, which many of which have responded to me, is to come here and speak to you. So I don't see that being redundant if that's my only avenue to express my concerns. Just please take that into consideration, because that can be running into a brick wall for citizens if we're told, you know, you can't say that or you can't talk on that point because it's too redundant because someone else has already said something similar. Well, they may have already said something similar, but you have several people that have an opinion, a strong opinion even, enough to get up here and speak to you on certain issues. And you need to know how people feel if a majority wants to come up here and speak on that issue. Now, on the 10-day rule, I completely support that. Now, what I'm hearing is like 7 days. I want to caution you on 7 days too, because about the holiday issue. Say you've got a holiday on a Monday. Now, you have, if the 7 days, you have 4 working days because you have 2 weekend days and that holiday. The courthouse is only going to be open for 4 of those days for that legwork to be done. Be very, very, very careful, because you're talking about millions of dollars in taxpayer money that's already been lost over the course of history due to clerical errors in contracts, and we really don't want that to happen. And I'm sure that we do our diligence with these issues, but please be careful. We don't want to limit ourselves to 4 working days, do we? I mean, I feel like you all deserve more than that to look over a contract. And with limiting time, I've heard a lot of back and forth, but no general consensus on what the body wants to do. I don't feel it's a good idea to limit time further than what we already have. Like, if it's not broke, why fix it? Because what I usually do, and many of you here have experienced me come here with a prepared speech to speak to the body. Usually I will email for 5 minutes and come in here with my research prepared to speak. Say if I get here and there's already 10 people and you're giving them 3 minutes each, that's already 30 minutes and I wouldn't get to speak after I've made the effort to come. I don't feel like that's necessarily fair, because if it's going to happen to me, it's going to happen to other people. And further, why would we be limiting things when we've said it's a rare occurrence that there's an issue with it taking too long? And thank you for listening to me today.
Do we have any other visitors wishing to address the committee?
My name is Tony Stradazzulo, 609 East Louise Avenue. The first thing that I would like to start off with is last week, 90% of the name tags were turned away from the people out here. So it's hard to get names. You all know each other, so the name tags aren't for you to know who's speaking and to know who's there and who's not there. It's for the public people to know who's speaking in each of your all's name. That's one thing that I'd like to have addressed. The next thing is about the redundance of somebody coming in here and saying the same thing. We're doing it right now. She mentioned it. I'm here, I'm mentioning it, but I'm gonna mention other things. It was decided that it could be voted on whether or not somebody would have the opportunity to be heard or not heard if they came in after the fact. Now, if I came in 1 week and you guys said no, I couldn't speak, but 3 weeks later somebody else was gonna speak, I'm not gonna be happy about that, okay? I'm gonna look at it as you don't wanna hear what I have to say, but you're willing to hear what somebody else has to say. So that's gonna bring up issues, okay? You had mentioned about the committee meeting is the meeting for people to address. We're people, we're humans. We don't know what a committee meeting is. We don't know what a commission meeting is. We don't do our due diligence to find out what meeting to talk about and which one to go to. That's not what the public does, right? The public hears about something and they want to go to the next meeting. So I understand that there is protocol. But if you have that many people coming to a commission meeting to speak about something in a negative way, and it's going to go past that 30 minutes, maybe we need to not progress with that. Maybe we need to take that back and not just say, well, let's limit it to 30 minutes because we don't want to hear 45 minutes worth of people complaining about a subject. If there's that many people that oppose that, it's time to reconsider what we're talking about. Find out different avenues to take. Now, you want us to come up here and speak about different topics about what we feel and we agree. And that's what we want out of all of our commissioners. We don't want just a vote. We want to know why you're voting for that. And I don't want the same answer from you as him, as you, as you. We want 10 different answers. We want to know why each person feels that that is either the way to vote for it or why you're voting against it. We want to know that. That way we can be enlightened. Because if we go on the internet and we find out from Hamilton County what's going to be on the committee agenda, it only tells us so much. It doesn't break down the information that we as the public, unknowledged people in our government, what each of those stand for, what each of those mean. So prior to a vote, if there is any kind of question and somebody does come up here against something, somebody in the committee needs to give this is why we feel that this is the best for our people, for the public. We want to know why. That way we're not always against it. We want to hear your reasonings behind it as much as we want to give you our reasons against it. Because you all might have some very, very good valued points, but we don't know what those are because the dialogue's not happening between you all. So we're left out. So all we can do is come in here and complain about things. We don't want to just complain because nothing is really personal. I don't come in here, I don't know any of you all personally. I don't care what you do on your regular time of day. I want to know, and I only know what you do or do not do for the people. And you make a lot of very, very, very good points on a lot of times when you speak and about a lot of things. And I wish the rest of the committee would do the same thing. Give their input, give reasons why you suspect that something should or should not be done. And that doesn't happen. That's all we want. We want some dialogue. We want answers to be to our questions, but we don't even want to really ask those questions. We just want to know why you feel some way. Do we need a new truck for something? This is the reason why. The old one doesn't work. It's not worth fixing. We need a new truck. Perfect. Great. We agree. Let's move on. Go to the next thing. But we need some type of reasoning behind it. Thank you.
I have something, of course, else to say. So, I mean, I'm a firm believer. I'm like David. I'm a firm believer in the committees. But I do think that maybe what commission needs to do, that the chairs, because there are people who are not going to go to these committee meetings. And like you said, you want to know. All you're doing is just wanting to know, because a lot of times you hear, I make a motion, we vote on, that, comes out of committee, I'm bringing this out of committee, I make a motion that we vote on blah, blah, blah. Have a second, and that's it. That's what you hear. So what could possibly happen, and this, this is up to you all, it's not up to me, but I know that when I was over a committee, there would be times that I would say, in commission, we discussed this, and it would get, and I'm talking one sentence, very short synopsis about why we did it, what we looked at, and what we said. And I make a motion, this is coming out of committee, I put the motion on the floor that this passes, or whatever, and somebody seconds it, and we go on. But one sentence, or two sentences, could fix the issue that you just brought up.
Sure, a little something.
And it's not gonna be like a big whole discussion, because that happened like, at committee meeting. But it would be just a short thing, so, yeah, because sometimes you've got just a little snip of something, you're just making a motion. That's all you're making. This was put in committee because the truck wheels fell off and we didn't want to, it was easier to buy a new one. We put this out for bid. I make a motion that we pass this, whatever. So, I mean, I think that's still up to you all, but I don't think that's an unreasonable request.
Thank you.
Hello. My name is Gwendolyn Holden. I live at 8150 West Point Drive. I've been coming to county commission meeting for 8 years. I've been going to committee meetings for 8 years. I had to move out of my community because I couldn't get anything done. It was stressful on me, very stressful. But I'm for the 10-day rule. I'm for keeping the public comments as is, because we're taxpayers, and we deserve to come up here and tell you all how we feel, whether we get anything done or not. That's why I've been coming for 8 years. And you know what? I'm going to keep coming till I die, because I believe in what I believe in. True justice for everybody. And I'm a taxpayer. I just want things to stay the way they are. There's nothing wrong with the way things are. Like Miss Elizabeth said, if it's not broken, don't fix it. Leave it alone. You're not going to get rid of me until I'm dead. I'm sorry. Because, you see, I've not liked a lot of things that's gone on. Not just me, but the Father that sits above. He sees and He knows everything that we do. He sees our heart. He knows it. And you know, one day I know He's going to take care of it. But I do my little part. You know why I do my little part? Because God told me to. And that's why I do it. I don't do it because I've got nothing against any of you all. I just don't understand. You probably don't either. You might want to fix my problem, but you can't. I know you can't. I've been trying for 8 years. And I know if I can't fix it, and you can't fix it, there's only one person that's going to fix it. And I just have to wait for His time. So why don't you just leave things the way they are? And let's get along and try to do the right thing for all of the community. And that includes Road Junction. Even if you think it's done gone too far. But you know, the city and the county did a lot of that. But there's a lot of people that live out there that have done a lot of it too. And I haven't appreciated it. But it's not my permanent home. But you know, the Bible says to be good stewards of the land. Don't pollute it. Don't destroy it. Only God's supposed to do that, not us.
Thank you, Ms. Holden. Anyone else like to address the committee?
Ann Horner, 1535 Panther Creek Road. And I'm going to be redundant, and I'm going to ride on the coattails of the people that have spoken before me because I'm not real prepared for tonight. But aside from those things, I want to stress how important our First Amendment is. It is a sacred right. It is a God-given right. That is the First Amendment in a divinely inspired document. And you all are having a discussion on whether you should limit that or not. And that's what I have a problem with. And I'm sure that I've been considered rude and unkind. I'm hearing it. I hear y'all. But I don't know how to say what I mean unless I just say what I mean to say. I don't get up here and curse. I'm not out of hand. I'm not out of order. Maybe I haven't always addressed the chairman. I will try to do better with that. I understand rules have to be in place, but I don't understand limiting or even having a discussion on limiting speaking to our government to address our concerns. That shouldn't be happening.
Thank you.
I think the thing that concerns me is if you want, I think you should be able to speak. I mean, we all know that I'm mouthy, so I definitely think you should be able to speak. But I think if you have an issue, a true issue, and you really want that issue taken care of, you need to contact your commissioner, or you need, or you need to contact your chairman, or you need to bring that in and say, I want this placed in a committee. I mean, that's what, if you want to get it done, that's how you get it done. It doesn't make it right. You don't have to love it. And I'm not saying not come up here and speak. Come up here and speak. But if it's something that you truly feel impassioned about and you want them to look at it, you're going to have to get it in that committee. Gwen knows. She's been here
I do.
8 years. I mean, you got to get it in committee.
And I'm not giving up.
I mean, it's probably not my turn to speak, so that's the chairman.
Mr. Brother.
So, I mean, this might be a question that you guys might not be able to solve at all, but what happens when the commissioner won't talk to us? Like, who do we go to then?
And I think that's what Nancy was trying to voice. If you don't get the feedback from the commissioner, then go to the chairman and then ask
And-
them to present it back to committee.
And if you don't get it from the chairman, then you come up here and you request it in that microphone right there, then you request that it be put in committee. Because at the end of the day, I may not like you, you may not like me, but if I'm a commissioner, I work for you.
Anyone else wishing to address the committee?
There are Waddell Road in Morristown. And I brought something here to y'all that is the most precious thing that I own. Mr. Cox here owns it. Linda, Tony, Ann, Gwen, we all own it. It's called the Constitution of the United States. All of you own it when you step on their side of this aisle. You step on that side of that rail, you don't own this, you have no rights. You're the government then. All the rights belong to the people. You have none when you're commissioners. When you're acting as a commissioner, when you're acting as a citizen, you have the full, but none when you're a commissioner. I want to read to you something. It is hardly too strong to say that the Constitution was made to guard the people against the dangers of good intentions. There are men in all ages who mean to govern well, but they mean to govern. They promise to be kind masters, but they mean to be masters. They think there need be put little restraint upon themselves. The love of power may sink too deep in their own hearts. That was written by Daniel Webster, one of our founding fathers, who had a big hand in writing this document that we own and that you, as commissioners, are subjects to. You have to obey this because this is the supreme law of the country. Nothing you do can top this. In the United States Congress, a representative said, if you write the law, but you let me write the procedures, the regulations to implement that law, I'll screw you every time. A United States Congressman said it. He admits it. No matter what you do, if you do it in the procedures, the rules, the guidelines, you can always find a way to turn it the way you want it. And just like if you say, well, we're going to let 10 people speak. If I got something I want to push, guess what? I'm going to get 10 people in here early, sign them up on that sheet. Guess what all 10 of them you're going to hear? You're going to hear what I want you to hear. There's always a way to manipulate things. You don't want to allow that. You want to let the people come in here and speak. And just as Ann Horner walked up here and told you about the First Amendment, if you look in the back of a package of something and it's got the ingredients listed, the most prominent one's always first, the most important. What does the First Amendment say in our Constitution? Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or by prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or the press, or the right of the people to peacefully assemble and to petition the government for redress of grievances. Nowhere in there do I see where it says, as long as you don't say the same thing as the person before you, as long as you keep it to this many minutes, there's no restriction on it. Antonio Scalia, Supreme Court Justice. A lot of people disagreed with him. A lot of people loved him to death. But they all admitted one thing. He was brilliant. And he freely said, this is not a living thing. This is a legal document. It says what it says, and it doesn't say what it doesn't say. You don't need to be adding all this stuff into it. It clearly says right there, we got the right to come to you and tell you anything we want. We don't have to change it from what the person before us said. nor do we have to be limited. And anything you do doesn't top that. This is ours, not yours. It's ours. And you all need to abide by it, because we are the rightful owners of power in this country, not you. Thank you.
Ms. Phillips?
I can't help it. So Daryl, I have a question. So do you think that it's okay for you all to come and be rude to the commissioners, and do you think it's right for the commissioners to be rude to you?
No, I think there should be decorum, but not in the.
So I want you to get back up there, and I want you to just tell me, just in plain words, what it is you want.
I'm sorry?
I want you to just get back up there and tell me what you want. I don't want 5 minutes. I don't want 30 minutes. I don't want redundancy. Just tell me what you want. Tell us all, just what you want.
I want the people to be free.
Okay,
Come in
I mean,
and talk to you.
so you don't want a time limit, you don't want the redundancy thing, I mean, where are you going with this?
I don't think that it's right to give someone power to stand up there and say, this is redundant, so I'm stopping you.
Okay,
I don't think that nobody
Okay.
should have that power over the people.
well, just over anybody, I mean, that's what you're saying, okay, you don't like the redundant thing, because, I mean, that's true, people can say different things different ways, and one word that somebody uses may be something that clicks with me that doesn't click with anybody else, that, you know, you're like, oh, yeah, well, yeah.
Anytime that we're gonna decide on anything, it should always be decided more in favor of this than anything.
Yeah, I'm not saying that, I'm just saying, I just sometimes just need you to just say, this is what I really want, and this is what I don't want, you know, it just,
Yeah, it's like you say, you know, if you want to limit someone to 3 minutes, I can understand that there is a time that just the filibusters in the Senate pulls when they just ramble on and on, trying to drag something out. There is there's sense to all things. But if you give a person, a chairman, senator, a power to say, well, this is redundant, or your time is up.
gotcha.
Well, then you can say, well, okay, well, the chairman, they can also say, well, we're gonna give this person more time. But from what we've seen out of this commission,
Well, now, let's
They
be
don't
nice,
like
we
what they're
just, we're
saying,
trying to make the
it's not
rules.
gonna go.
Yeah, but we're just trying to make the rules now, so let's all just, you know, this is probably a lot of stuff that, they didn't have the luxury of having the knowledge that I had when I came on. It was huge. I mean, I'm just gonna be honest with you. So, and I'm not saying that the seasoned commissioners didn't know anything, I'm just saying there was a lot of people that knew a lot of stuff that had been here for a lot of years. And I don't think anybody here wants you not to be able to speak. But you are a smart man. I mean, you know what people can be like. You know, there comes a time when you're like, I just need you to say something and not just get up to say something to be on TV. And we've run into that before. I mean, that's just what's happened before. And I think that's more of what, I don't think anybody, when there's something that you really want, something you want to talk about, I can't imagine any one of these commissioners not wanting to listen. Now, as long as you're not disrespectful, because like I said, you get disrespectful, and I think then the whole thing shuts down. And I think when you come up the same, you know, not you, I don't mean you, when a person comes up and they just constantly hammer on something they've hammered on again and again and again, I know when I watch your videos and I see that, I'm done. I mean, I'm zoned out because I'm just a citizen. But, I mean, I'm fairly intelligent, I think. When you tell me something, that something's happened, I pay attention and I listen to it. You don't have to tell me 15 times. So I think that to be positive and move forward, I think it would be very nice. I mean, we all know how I feel about committee meetings. But anyway, like you said, you don't know when they are. But I do think that the thing that you brought up, I think that's a simple fix. Say a couple lines, this is why we're doing this. I actually think that's an excellent idea. And I think that, you know, if you all are that, really feel that much about the redundant comment thing, I mean, I think that's something that this committee at least will listen to about that. But you know what I'm talking about. You can have people come up and just keep, and you're like, okay, you know, we got it, we understand. And I'm not saying it's not your right. I mean, I'm not saying that at all, but.
But I mean, if the committee changes their opinion or their vote to either vote no on it or to readdress it in another committee meeting. At that point in time, it could be said, hey, listen, we are taking everything into consideration. We will go ahead and we will revise, we will go back over it, and we will bring this up at the next meeting.
Yeah.
That way you don't continue to have to listen to everybody.
You do, you just put it back in committee. I mean, that's what you do, because and then you tell everybody when your committees are. Or, you know, that's where you need to have some kind of rapport with your commissioner or a chairman to get your ideas in those committees. I mean, that's just where they need to be. They need to be in the committees, and you need to be able to come and speak your piece. Even if it's only one person coming to speak their piece, you need to be able to speak your piece.
I mean, but like, how do we, okay, so if there's 20 people in this room, how do we get together and say, okay, well, the 5 of us are with it, you go talk? And we don't
No,
get-
I don't mean that. I mean, like, I do think everybody needs to speak their piece, but, I mean, you've been to meetings before. I know, you too. I know you're a businessman, and I'm assuming you work for a living.
I'm just a guy with a camera.
Okay, well, you're just a guy with a camera, but if you got mobbed, you know, sometimes it's easier. I don't think anybody doesn't want anybody to speak. I'd like to say that first of all, or I don't. I think you should be able to speak. But I do think that some things, like you said, need to be put back in committee. When you have that much passion about something, it needs to go back to committee. Now, having said that, that doesn't mean it's not going to come out just exactly the way it came out the first time. But it will give you an opportunity to know that people are upset and to know that you as a citizen, me as a citizen, you all as a citizen, can come to those committee meetings. You know, and nobody wants to be berated all the time. You know, these guys are they're doing the best, they're doing what they think is right. They don't sit up here and think, I wonder how I can screw you today. You know, they're actually doing what they feel is right. And I think that somehow we've all got sideways. I want to know what you think. I mean, I think that's a great idea you had. I would have never thought about it because I would have been in committee and I would have known what was going on. And sometimes I think you forget that. You know, you forget that you've sat through the committee meetings, and I think you forget that.
Being in y'all's position is not easy because you do have to listen to the negative things. I mean, I get negative comments and I get threats, but I still show up with the camera. Why? Because I have to show people what is going on. I can't listen to the negative people if I got a bunch of more people that really want to hear and they want that education. I gotta come up, focus on what needs to be done and not take everything personal, because people just want to talk. Some people can't get up here and do what I do, so they're jealous. Some people don't want change, so they're jealous. People think different things, but I can't take this stuff personally. Otherwise, nobody would do what they do. You just have to get up and you have to put your problems personally behind you and just take what's in front of you and focus on that. So nobody's here saying that you guys have an easy job or y'all should listen to every negative thing, but you all are the faces for that. And we can't just write a letter to someone because we don't get the same focus, right? And, you know, I would love to still have an ability to meet up with people and talk to them. There's no time for that. You all have lives.
Yeah.
And we understand that you all have lives. You all have other things to do, other priorities. But when you're here, the priority is what the people have to say, what is on their minds, so that you all can make the right decision on what to vote and what not to vote, and allow the people to know why that is.
Well, you need to remember that even when they take a vote, you may not like what the vote does, but there's a reason that they make votes. I mean, there's reasons that those votes are made like they're made.
But if we have hey, this is the reason why, we can at least say, you know what, that's a good idea.
Yeah, you may not like it. The commissioners may not like it, but there's some guidelines and rules you have to follow whether anybody likes them or not.
And it's no different than us coming up there and speaking. You may not like it.
That's right. And I don't think that there's a problem with you all speaking, and I don't think there's a problem with any commissioner here listening to what you have to say. But I think the minute you get rude and you get personal, you cross the line, and the same goes for the commissioners, back to you.
I mean, the only time I pinpointed out was last week, because he is in charge of the, people in that area, right? And they're upset with him because they don't expect anybody else, any other commissioner, to reach out to them. They expect him because that is his area, right? So I couldn't make my point across without putting a name on.
Well, I don't think it's necessarily a name. I'm talking about just belligerently being rude. You know what I'm saying? I mean, there's a difference between saying, hey, guys, this is your area, we need help, and you just being, and I don't mean you, I don't mean, I know they do.
I'm sorry, I'm one of
That would be me, so I understand completely.
All right,
Sorry.
thank you. Does anyone else want to address the committee?
I have one question before Kenny gets up. Sheriff Esco Jonathan has been sheriff in this county for 51 years. 51 years. Run that jail. Is a detective for the city. And my question is, when he come up to that podium to talk to you, and twice, as far as I know, why did you not listen to him? He has experience with that. Why did you not listen to Esco? That's what I can't understand. Why did you not take it into consideration? That's all. And if you have an answer for me, would you put it in writing? I'd like to know. Please. Pretty please.
My name is Linda Noe, 2343 Joe Stevens Road. I will be redundant because Ms. Brotherton very capably addressed every issue. The 10-day rule, that is a no-brainer. Now, I heard a question about what if the holiday is on Monday? I have no problem with a 9-day. But there's no reason to cut it back to 8 or 7 or anything less than that. That committee occurs on Tuesday, then you have 9 days at least to review that contract. Do you have a preferred length of total time for public comments? No, I do not. I have sat on that side. I have listened to comments that perhaps I didn't agree with, perhaps I didn't appreciate, perhaps I thought it was rude. That may have seemed that way to me. But I sat there and I looked that person in the eye and I listened. I gave them respect. And yes, that's a two-way street. Do you wish to have 1 or 2 public comment sections? There's no reason to change what you have. It's like the city. It has worked. So why are we even contemplating changing that? You have very little time, particularly when it's a packed agenda, to address the agenda items during that first public comment opportunity. So even with 3 minutes or 5 minutes upon request, it's difficult if there are 2 or 3 different items on that particular agenda. So yes, 2 public comment sections, no limit on time. Now, I'm sure that's going to, oh my gosh, you're talking about no limit on time? Unless it got outrageously ridiculous, and I haven't seen that. As has been pointed out, the only time was when you had the surprise and the controversial property maintenance. If the people have shown up and they want to speak and they are that concerned about an item, give them the time. Give them the time. You mentioned, Nancy did, about how it's very difficult for some people to get up and speak. Those people came, they gave their time, they got up here in a very unfamiliar environment. Let the people speak. Do you want to have citizens sign up to speak? No. Because as Darrell mentioned, and as virtually anyone knows, the minute I saw that, I thought, okay, I'll be there at 4 o'clock. Again, if you're not limiting the time, then that becomes a non-issue, the sign up anyway. you talked about people not knowing about meetings. I don't know if you recall, Nancy, but we had it put in the community calendar on the second page of the Tribune, where it lists various meetings for the week. Now, the Tribune doesn't do that anymore, but I think they would do it. I hope they would, Mr. Hightower, upon request. And list those, because people, you know, you publish your committee or meetings in December or whatever. You get to May and nobody knows what's the second Monday and what time is it. And then when's the Thursday after the third Monday or 10 days after the second Monday. I mean, we have a pretty weird schedule to begin with, but put it in the community calendar as a reminder. Ask the radio stations to do it as a public service announcement.
The cable.
Pardon?
Cable.
Yeah, yeah. How do we handle redundant comments? Respectfully, patiently, we listen. Because people do have a different perspective, and whether I got up and repeated exactly, which I probably could have done, and it would have been good. It is what you feel. You may consider it redundant. It's an expression. It's an opportunity. Please don't take that away from the citizens by letting someone sit there and say, I think that's redundant. And that is all I have. And it says time is up.
You're redundant.
And so,
We need to get rid of this tape.
as part of what we're listening to here, when we were going through this, and I was trying to prepare for it, I thought that the original document was pretty good. I thought the people who crafted the original one did a pretty fine job of doing it. And so when I put into the question, what recommendations do you have, if any? That's because it's not a bad place to start. And we can have this discussion, and we can do it very civilly. And if this is what the body chooses to do, we're not in a bad place to start with.
That's true.
All right, so the next meeting is going to be March the 25th, and this is going to be on the topic of discussion of local rules and procedures to go along with the Roberts rules and whether or not we elect to have that as our guide. That is all we have, and thank you for your time. Meeting adjourned.